Hmm. Can't hear anything.
I just heard you,
Mhm.
Gramps.
Oh, good. I just somehow got unmuted.
Yeah,
Find the volume button.
they probably had us on mute. In fact, I should see how let's see how my camera looks too. A little bit backlit.
Yeah, you're a bit backlit.
What's that? To lean in.
Okay, hi. Welcome, everybody. This is the meeting of the Woodside Highlands Road Maintenance District Resident Advisory Committee. Welcome, everybody, to our June meeting. Agenda has been circulated beforehand, and I'd like to ask if someone is willing to act as secretary for the meeting. Donald will answer at once.
Yeah, I'm heading out of town soon, so I figure I probably wouldn't get it to you in a timely manner.
Thank you. Jorg has nicely volunteered. Thank you very much. We've now officially called ourselves to order and roll call. Matt King,
Here.
Frank Crow,
Here?
Gene Isaacson, Tim McDonald,
Here.
Bill Raylick,
Here.
Jorg Schul, and myself, Teresa Godfrey, here. Oral communications for items not on the agenda. As you know, we're happy to take comments from whomever, but we generally are not able to act on anything that's brought up at this part of the meeting. So I understand, Ramesh, first of all, welcome back to you and your family. We're so happy to have you guys back in the hood. And I understand you've got something you'd like to bring up. Okay.
We
Can I
can't.
reach the microphone?
Yeah, would you mind going to the microphone? You can either do it in the table there or stand up, either one.
Also, remind everyone to lean into the mics when they speak, because we've noticed Wayne and I are much louder, I believe, than all of you.
Test, test. How's that, Frank?
That's great.
Okay.
Hello again. Okay. Starting from the beginning, this is Ramesh. The request I have is as follows. When you drive up Russell and you pass the Smooths house on the right, then the road bends sharply to the right, and that goes into my driveway. Because of the growth of the wisteria, which looks beautiful along Rob's fence, trouble is, as I'm coming out of the driveway, I have no visibility into uphill traffic. I can turn around and see the downhill traffic, but I just can't see the uphill traffic. So cutting across from my driveway into the road is becoming perilous. So it would be nice to have one of those mirrors set up. I'm happy to pay for it if that will help. But I don't want to do anything without the permission and the approval of the road committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Have you talked to Rob at all about doing any type of trimming to, at least in the short run, help with your visibility?
No, I haven't spoken to him about that, but it would be, I think it would be quite, I mean, it's up to him to do it, but it would be quite drastic if, to get that visibility. As I said, I do love the wisteria myself. It does look beautiful.
Yeah.
But the trouble is right now, and in winter, when it loses its leaves, it's fine. But right now in summertime, when it's in full flow, it's quite dense. You can't see anything.
Could I suggest an experiment?
Frank?
Go ahead, Frank.
Yes, I'd like to suggest an experiment. I'm very happy to go up and spend a half an hour trimming the wisteria back in a way that I find aesthetic. I'd love to have you evaluate it after I do that to find out whether that improves things enough so that maybe you don't need a mirror, which is a much larger investment of time and resources.
Sure, Frank. Maybe, we can look at it together and see what kind of thing we do. But let me know when you're free and we can take a look at it and see what could be done.
Excellent.
So what we should probably do is just give a heads up to Rob that we're going to be doing a little trimming along the fence line to pull back the wisteria because of visibility issues. And as long as we notify people, they're usually okay with things. Is that
Right.
Okay.
Works for me.
Okay. Anybody have any great worries about it? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Frank.
Any other oral communications for items that are not on the agenda? Okay,
I have one.
yes, Jean.
Also about things going on along the road. So at a past meeting, we talked about some sort of reflectors being put along the very beginning, that first stretch of Santa Maria where it drops off so severely. And I passed around here a picture of what I was, there's Frank's waving his hands.
Yes, I have 6 reflectors that I bought on the construction of the committee, and I have been very slow about actually installing them. Now that you bring it up, I'll do that. I guess I have to do it this week, and you can decide how you like the results.
Okay, so were you going to use those little poke in the ground white? with
Yes,
The little reflectors?
yeah, the
Okay,
committee didn't like my idea of putting up a what do you call it, a girder there, so we'll put in the push-in reflectors and see if that has the effect.
yeah,
you want.
yeah, my experience with those, if you don't stand on top of it, they're always tipping over and falling over and leaning and all
Yeah,
that, but if we,
Theory, nobody's going to be running over them to knock them over, but yes, you're right.
okay, let's give it a try.
We can always come back to something a little bit more permanent if it looks like these things are
Mm-hmm.
not just delineating the edge enough for the drivers.
Right, so Frank, what I did was, what I was suggesting is maybe 4x4s in the
Mhm.
ground, standing up, well, not why, but like every 4 feet or something, with maybe 4 of them or something. And I
Right.
brought a photo I took along Mountain Home Road as you approach Roberts, where they had what, like 4 or 5 4x4s with a reflector on each one. You're not going to stop a car. Nothing we put there will, but it might really. So if the plastic ones don't work, this is another possibility.
Yeah, I think I went on record as saying I thought the little plastic things were a bit of a tiny little effort in the right direction, but
Sure,
see.
let's try it.
For the minutes, where were we talking about this, post?
The very first stretch of Santa Maria where it drops off so severely.
Next to the
On the-
telephone pole.
On the downhill side of.
Yeah, it's the
Santa
place
Maria.
that Annalise tried to drive into a year or 2 ago, if you remember.
Right.
Any other items? Okay, great.
Well, you have Pippa on there. Do you want to talk about Pippa?
No, I want to do the approval of the minutes and then we'll do the chipper.
Okay.
Oh, you're right. No, you're absolutely right. That was an announcement. That was an oral communications, right? I'm so sorry. Woodside Fire Chipper date, July 1st and October 7th. As you can, most people have already seen that the fire department has put up the sign at the first curve on Santa Maria, notifying residents. I think we sent out a notice as well. So July 1, they'll be on the hill doing their chipper. Anybody have any questions? They're welcome to actually contact the fire department because they're the ones that would probably be able to answer the questions. Debris should be, piled on the side of the road so that the chipper can get to it easily.
No, I was actually hoping I tried to get a few chainsaws together because the sprinkling left there are 2 dead trees on the bottom of the hill. There's one more little further up the hill. And I think overall, there was not a significant trimming from the really wet winter where I thought like, I really want to only cut big stuff. But I tried to get 2-3 people just with chainsaws and we just pile up on the side of the road for that, hopefully the Sunday before that. So I'll just do that separate, just to get a better clearance of the bigger stuff and especially want to get rid of the dead trees for sure, so they don't fall at one point.
Are they small enough for this chipper program, or do you know what the diameter is?
What I saw there all this, it's like, the first bend up there, 2 standing in, it's hard to see them under the living. But they're like, okay, I'll check.
Or check the
Okay.
diameter requirements for the chipper, because I know that there's a certain diameter after which it's too big to fit in the chipper. And I don't know what that off the top of my head. I might be able to find it for you in my notes.
So I'll
Okay,
try to get this first, and then once I have a few people lined up, I probably make a separate email,
okay.
just to remember people that Chipper is around and they should do trimming anyway.
Right. Great. Okay, approval of the minutes. Our last date was April 11th. The minutes were attached to our agenda and were distributed. Were there any changes, additions, corrections?
I wasn't at the meeting, so
Well, I
defer to
think,
everybody else here.
I think we assigned you everything to do. But,
It's usually how it works. Yeah.
Anybody have, it was really the fire marshal, that was the
Yeah.
main subject of the meeting. To my knowledge, on those items that she said she would get back to people, was not. So that's a bit of a disappointment. There were some specific questions about some of the ordinance requirements. She said she would be back to certain residents, and I don't believe she has been.
Has anyone here ever so far seen one of the inspection visits or seen the results, shall we say?
Some friends of ours, yeah, they live on the, Wyndham.
Uh-huh.
Over there. I think they got inspected.
Was it drastic or reasonable theming, or did you know?
Well, it's what I've heard, where you need like a 5-foot buffer around the house.
Right. Yeah.
They didn't go into a lot of more detail around that. They were doing a big landscaping project anyway, so.
I'm gonna be seeing one soon, I hope. It took me like 12 days to get an appointment with them. I was just handed off here and there. Turns out if you go to the website, the .org website, and click on something like SB, whatever, there's an application right there, and it's quite speedy. So I'll be seeing one for a little house I'm gonna sell over in Los Trancos. And I was there when they came. There were 2 fire department people. And it wasn't as if, I didn't get the feeling at all that they were trying to be, you know, overly picky or anything like that. So I'm dying to see. I'll share it with you when I see it.
I think, wasn't it the last meeting, was it, who had already done the inspection with them? Alan? Not sure, there were,
Somebody did.
yeah,
it,
someone
you're
did
right.
Oh,
already on the
okay.
bill,
Were they,
invited them out for just getting an inspection,
oh, were they weren't selling their house? They just
No.
invited them out
Yeah.
proactively?
for getting the.
Yeah, I was on the website and it looks like they have a schedule in which they're gonna get around Woodside and Portola Valley, and it looks like they're mostly starting in Woodside Hills on the other side of 280.
Oh, okay. Mhm.
But I
I
think if
know
you have a
those-
permit or you're selling, they're gonna come out earlier.
Yeah, you have to get it right away.
We're in year 2. My understanding is that we're in year 2 of the inspection process. So there'll be a full year before our neighborhood gets inspected. Unless someone voluntarily asks for an inspection beforehand, either they want it or they're selling their home.
Yeah.
All right, can I make the motion to approve the minutes?
Yeah.
A second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Finances, Matt?
Yep. All right, bear with me here. Let me see if I can get into the Zoom. It's all day, every day, so I should be practiced at it. It's not on this computer. Okay, so 2 things I want to cover in today. One is just an update in terms of where we are in terms of overall fiscal, what I'm calling fiscal 24, which ends at the end of this month. So our fiscal year with the town starts July 1. We try and typically submit our budgets around the same time frame too, so they could approve it formally at the town. There's never been a hard deadline with them. I think actually last year we submitted it sometime around the September timeframe, but they've also been going through some staffing challenges within the finance team anyway, so there was not a lot of pressure for us to do that. So we'll take a look at FY 24. We have some recommendations for FY 25. The expectations that we would decide on the budget within this meeting here, and then we can submit it up to the town for formal approval. Process-wise, we would give it to our finance rep at the town. Formerly, it had been Cindy. It's now Tony McFarland. who is stepping into the role that Cindy was previously occupying. So we'll work with him and he will take it up to the council for a formal approval is the expectation. Okay, so in terms of FY '24, we started the year with the beginning balance, and I'm gonna say estimated, because we're going off of previous financial records, and I think each of you have heard as I mentioned a minute ago, the staffing challenges within the town. They also had some challenges where they were upgrading their financial accounting system. And the reconciliation with the previous balances was something that they had not completed as the last time I talked to them. So we went off of the pre-upgrade that they made financial statements, and we kind of carried forward based on our expenses. So that's the best estimate that we would have is in terms of our beginning balance to start the year is that estimation. So there might be some minor edits as actual revenues come in, as they're doing accruals and reversals and so forth. But so we think is pretty close to my point. So beginning balance of around 339 with estimated revenue of 65K. Obviously, the big budget item that we had for this year was the PCI continuation work, which we did not get a start on within this fiscal year. We had 125K with a contingency, so that money we'd expect would carry over when we start the project, which is something we have on the agenda today. So we did not approve or spend anything on the paving work that we'd set aside for this year. Dumpsters, you can see I've got a flag next to the spring cleanup that we submitted to the town for reimbursement to Bruce. 1342 was the cost of the dumpsters. And then scrolling down here a little bit, we had the cleanup labor that we had hired to be able to pay for the cleanup following. Those are the two expenses we had submitted to the town. 1,900 was the total bill. We had approved 2,500. Since we didn't budget for that formally in this last year, I just put it as part of the administrator discretionary fund. So from a total expense standpoint,
So Matt, can I just mention that to my knowledge, Bruce has not been paid yet?
okay,
Nor
well,
have I.
let's follow up with, he was supposed to, I think they
sent-
said June 12th was the check cut date, so
Okay.
we should, if we haven't followed up with Tony in the last 5 days, we need to follow up with Tony.
I didn't know that the check cut was being 12. Okay.
Yeah, that's the date that I recall.
Okay, good.
Yeah, they cut checks once a month. So we try and make it within their cycle, and then so we could be right up against that date or miss it entirely, and have to wait for the next month. So we should definitely follow up with Tony to make sure that Bruce gets reimbursed, because
And do you know that, does he have to go down to the town to pick the check up, or did they just mail
mailed
it?
to him.
Okay,
Yeah, and they have his address and file. So on the same thinking, you paid the
The
gardener
gardener,
for, did you get reimbursed?
no,
Okay. So we gotta follow up on both.
yeah. I did see it on the town council, log sheet,
Okay,
but I didn't see Bruce's name. I didn't see BW Construction, so that alerted me to a possible problem. I called Bruce. He has not received a check.
and I thought I saw you sent a follow-up note inquiring about it.
Fortunately to Cindy Chavez, because I probably sent it to the wrong person then.
Yeah.
So,
We'll send it to Tony.
okay.
Yeah.
I can repeat that and do that.
I can idea send notes to Tony.
But I think, for people who are laying money out for the hill, it's really hard to make them wait months on end to get reimbursed, so.
Yeah, I mean, in theory, at worst, they should wait 1 month, right? If we just miss the check cut date, then they would have to wait potentially a month. I agree, they should not have to wait any longer.
Yeah.
So we'll check with the town.
Okay,
So those are the two reimbursements that we had made over this since the last meeting. So we had approved the total expenses of 15,325, but we've actually spent less than that. We spent 13,35 because, like I was mentioning with the dumpster and spring cleanup, some of these items came in under what we had approved. So where that would actually leave us, assuming that beginning balance and the estimated revenue were pretty close, which I assume they are at this point. I've done a fair amount of digging through the prior year finances to try and make it all tie out. Is that we'd end the year at around 388, 880 for our ending balance, which would be the starting point for FY FY '25. So this is what we would look to submit up to the town as our plan for this current or this coming fiscal year. My assumption is that estimated revenue would be the same. I know there's been a fair amount of recommendations to dig in with the county and try and piece this apart and get into the details of this. I have not found the time to be able to do that, and I haven't picked up another volunteer to jump into that yet. But we're gonna try and use the prior estimates we get from the town as best we can. The expectation is that they should close their books, generally about a month after the actual close of fiscal. So in the August timeframe, we should get the full expense report from the town in terms of the money we spent, and we can reconcile it back to say, here's the money that came in and money that went out. It's the full P and L behind our finances, and we can square up the numbers. So the 388 and the 65 are estimates until we get that. The detail below it, I'm recommending a couple minor changes. The first one is increasing the paving from 125K to 150K. And this is to allow us to complete the rest of the paving project, which, Georg, I think you have some detail you'll be able to share with us later here. So you can help me if that's a right or wrong number, given what we want to go in with.
Yeah, I think it depends on how much overhead we wanna budget for. I think it's in the upper right ballpark number.
In the ballpark?
Yeah.
Okay. So it would increase to 150K plus a contingency. Contingency is 10%, so it goes up 2.5K as a result of that. Dumpsters have been coming in under, so we spent 2684 this year. I'm recommending that we budget again at 3,000. Give us a little breathing room in case the prices go up. Miscellaneous road repair, we had a couple bigger expenses this year that took us above our budgets. We have an option to increase it, or we keep it as is. The swale repair next to my house, actually, on the steep section.
Yeah.
That was the big outlier. Otherwise, the rest of the spend was pretty much in line. So assuming we don't have any big outliers like that, the 5,500 should be fine, but we can determine whether or not we want to increase that to something else.
We can take a look at the projects that are coming forward and seeing if we need to increase that a little bit. I know I have something that'll probably take a little bit of paving if we decide we want to go ahead with that project. It's not in anything right now. It'll be followed up with the new budget requests.
Okay. And then miscellaneous and administrator, I'd recommend we just keep those the same. We didn't spend any money actually this year on miscellaneous purchases, except unless Frank, you can submit your receipt for the reflectors and any paint that you had used. I think you'd used a couple things here and there, but we really didn't use much within that $1,000 if anything at all. Going back to the dumpsters real quick. 3,000 to be able to cover the dumpsters. If we want to increase to be able to cover labor, we should probably take it up to 7,000 because the last bill was 1,900 for spring cleanup labor. And so I would just change this from dumpsters to road cleanup expenses, dumpsters and labor.
I think it would be a good idea to put that in. We can always take it out, but if it's not in, then it's harder to possibly add it as a unexpected expense. We do have an item to talk about the cleanup and how it went later on.
Dumpsters, labor.
What's the total you have in there?
Total for
Yeah, that line item.
7,000.
7,000. Yep. So assuming we proceed as is, it actually leaves us with 272,880 in the bank. So actually still pretty healthy. A lot of this obviously is kind of based on the fact that we stretched out the paving timeline longer than we'd originally planned. So that obviously puts us in good shape. Where it does leave us though, and Georg, is something we need to talk about is in the next year, we're probably looking at doing the resealing of Lower San Maria again, so. We'll be getting kind of back on track in terms of our paving schedule. So, that's it. So it's total expenses of 181 if we spend everything. But it's still within, obviously, the money that we have set aside and completes out the major paving project we have. So, next up would be to approve this if we're in agreement, or we make some minor modifications here.
I would recommend that we actually approve it after we look at the projects that were recommended.
That works.
Came through, and then if it looks like there's some agreement that we want to proceed on some of these projects after we get a better understanding them, we can throw a few different numbers in there just to cover them.
Yep, I agree. That works. Okay. Stop sharing.
Okay, shall we just go through the budget requests that have come through thus far, just to get a sense of what we've received up to this point? Ready for that?
Sure.
Okay, so the first one was the Trinity with swale issue that Klaus had brought up, I believe. We sent that note around. There was a concern that with the repaving of Trinity, that the swale on the side of the wall has gotten deep, and that when people hug that side, that they potentially have issues with their tires going into the swale and creating some damage to the car. I'm not sure how big of an issue it is in terms of whether that's happened. I know that it is a very narrow road, and when there are two cars coming up and down, you really don't want to be there. So it requires a certain amount of caution, and I'll stop at that and see. I walked the swale, and there are some places that are a little deeper than normal, but I'm not sure that they're 2 feet. They're 6 inches maybe. But I didn't measure them, so maybe my estimate is they were short.
As I recall, there's plenty of part of the road there where if you actually drop a wheel off into that space, that you will end up on your axle or something and not be able to get out. I don't know whether you can do that without grinding a mirror on the side of the wall, so forth, but it wouldn't hurt anything to just dump some gravel in there to raise the level of the trench.
Yeah, so my worry is actually only centered around how full is that trench? Is it really raining like last year or something like this, right? Because the trench clearly builds a function, so it's a controlled runoff and not running over.
Right.
And so that would be like, I just don't know. I never saw it under a really full rain, and what, the fill depth is, and does it close to filling, and that's where I just would be careful. Filling something in without really knowing what the worst case scenario is. The debris piles up, and then a big rain, and then, so that's just something I would be a little bit cautious, but just filling it in.
Yeah.
And it's a one lane road, so I think that's like there's no true passing in the first place. So it's more a question like what car is bigger than the road, or mostly delivery trucks, garbage trucks. I don't know what the problem is getting back there. I would just that's something I definitely would like to understand.
Yeah, Klaus is probably in the best place to tell us how full that ditch gets. We can ask him.
Yeah, I would agree with that. The ditch does serve a purpose. My other thinking is that we don't want to make it easier for cars to drive that close to the wall and not get stuck. I think if you're going to put an investment into filling it, I think the same amount of material probably would go to good use, actually just building a curb along the side of it to keep them from going in there in the first place, which will allow us to keep the ditch at its depth and functioning and keep cars away from the wall. Because I think any weight next to that wall is probably not doing the wall any good either. So if the car's driving into it, it's probably not helping, so. I mean,
Maybe-
that would be my thinking, is a curb to try and keep something from happening would probably be a good solution as well.
Sure, maybe we could get Tim to put in a sign saying, don't drive past this point unless you know what you're doing.
We could put botch dots along the edge to keep them from driving in.
Sure. I'm sure Klaus would love to drive into his house every time with all this signage there in terms of.
I think he's
Better be a
really good
pro.
driver.
We asked for the sign,
Yeah.
so that sounded good.
Oh.
wondering whether the box starts- I was thinking of trying to do
We can't hear you.
Okay. On, I was thinking of possibly putting a iridescent stripe down the side of the road before the swale, so that you can actually see where it is, because right now it's just the same, it's asphalt, so maybe that would highlight where the edge is before you would be going into the swale. I don't know.
All great ideas. I think we should let Klaus tell us what he'd really like to have done there.
Where does that drain empty into?
You don't want to
Actually,
know.
just Down the side of,
Is it just open-ended?
It pours down that
crosses the street.
hillside.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
crosses the street and then just goes into the dirt of the hillside.
Well, it goes down to Wayside Road, and I've always thought and mentioned a few times that we should talk to them and make it a tight line, was that what you call it, when it's contained? Because it's just dumping down onto a place where you can see it's slid before. It's a slump, kind of a like that. So why don't we take it all the way down to Wayside Road where it gets over the hillside without causing any damage? I mean, it hasn't slid since, but it's never good to pour water on a hillside, bare hillside.
Yeah, if I recall right, it's not a pipe carrying it all the way down. It's,
Mm-mm.
For the gravel that got, when the rains came and all that gravel got washed down into your,
Yeah.
so
Mhm.
gravel doesn't seem like the.
Gravel is not a good
No.
thing for holding into the drain.
You know, it'd be interesting to talk to Klaus to find out if he has any idea what's the deepest he's ever seen water in that swale. And obviously, it's gotten past, let's say there's the shallowest and the deepest. If it's gotten safely through the shallowest, then the deepest doesn't have to be that deep, right? They can all be, it could be the same all the way. Assuming you allow a certain amount for the outlier storm. But yeah, well, this maybe isn't the time to do it, but I would suggest looking into again, the idea of keeping the water contained till it gets down to Wayside Road.
I think it's also important to understand if it's something you need trouble with for a personal car getting in or out, or we just really talking.
Can you lean into the mic, please?
For me, the question is it the problem for him with his personal car and his little truck, what he has, or is it a problem with just one delivery of where a random driver comes out and he just drives down there with too big of a truck? Or is it already a problem during the weekly garbage pickup, right?
As I
Because
remember,
if-
he mentioned guests being the problem. I mean, a professional driver would not have any trouble there.
I mean, I've never heard of a car getting towed out of it, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's not like I hear everything on the hill, so it doesn't happen frequently, be my guess.
So is this something we want more information about before we would consider putting this project into a budget?
I think so. I'd like to know how
You-
many vehicles actually have had a problem there. And if it's one or two, then that person probably ought to be a better driver and not be driving into ditches.
So we'll follow up.
Follow up with Klaus when they get
Yeah.
back in town.
Yeah, I mean, a budget doesn't mean we're committing to do it,
No.
right? But I think we also just don't have any idea as to what it would cost, and we wouldn't budget the right number anyway.
Emily, could you please mute? You're jingling into your microphone.
Okay, we got another request by Kaisa about the turn and the visibility going into the distabler. Residents on 31 Santa Maria asked us to reevaluate the need for a mirror there. At the time that we looked at this, when the first request came through, there was some discussion about not having a really good place to put a mirror that would help with that visibility issue. I did explain that to Kaisa, but I thought I'd just pass that along, that she brought this up again.
Did we actually go out there and with a mirror and two people, one at each, and try it? Or did we just think it wouldn't work?
So I took a few really slow drives on trying to understand the problem. And from my view, I just really think
Lean in,
either
please.
way- in either way, I couldn't find a problem. And then that's sitting in the low Prius and not with a high seating van. So it's like, I didn't see if you're careful approaching that turn and don't try to make the turn at the bottom right and the earliest convenience time, but make a little uphill turn and then go in the driveway, you have a really wonderful view in it. And that was my recommendation last time, that I don't see a problem if you don't make one. That's the way I saw it. If you really like try to avoid that problem by driving up the curve just slightly and then drive in the driveway, it's just a really great view. Maybe it's a question we will, bushes got too high and that came up again. I don't know, because the part of the cleaning was not aggressive enough. That well may be that the turn is not visible at the moment, but that was the conclusion last time. I looked at it, I took a few turns, slowly up and down, really carefully looking at how we came to the conclusion the last time, that we said, okay, we really don't think there's a need for a mirror. And if she wanted to install a mirror, she can just install a mirror on her mailbox.
Yeah.
I think that was the conclusion what we had last time. And the only thing what I can potentially see changing is probably the growth, but then the request should not be a mirror, but the request should be to limit the growth.
Should be a what? I'm sorry, Georg?
The remove of the additional bushes growing there at the moment, because
Oh.
there was nobody clipping it. I typically clip it in the cleaning to keep it low on the turn, just to keep visibility, and I just wasn't around. Nobody touched the whole area in the first place anyway.
Yeah, that one got missed. Well, maybe you and I should go whack it away.
Yeah, that's actually part of my plan as well, for the one cleanup potentially along with chipper program.
Okay.
Yeah. to do that turn.
This brings up a more general topic, which is that those of us who are aging in place on the hillside run into the problem of getting less confident and less competent as we drive up and down the hill. And we might at some point consider whether we want to make the hill safe for senior drivers who really don't have a great deal of competence or confidence. I'm looking for Self.
I think it changes real, let's be clear, it's changed the perspective. We always had the hill with seniors, and it's just, right, everybody becomes a senior if you live long enough on the hill.
right.
There always the same percentage of young people coming in. So I don't see this anything new, because it's just the natural flow of things.
Well, I have a unique viewpoint here that you don't share.
We all do.
Yeah.
Any other questions or want to do anything specific to a budget for this particular item? Okay. This one I thought was rather interesting. The back fence along Leroy at 50 Santa Maria, a request came through Bruce.
Well, this is actually, and the situation where nobody's requesting it formally. It's just that a few of us have been trying to act on Alana's behalf. The fence along the backside there was hit by a truck, probably one of our projects along the way, and that caused the moorings of that fence to fail. And so the fence is leaning onto our property. All we want really at this point is for Bruce to have the confidence that he can propose a fix to it that the committee will be happy with. Basically, all we're trying to do is get the fence to stand up again in a reliable way.
Definitely did not get cleaned up in one of the cleaning exercises, I can tell you that, because that fence has been leaning and hit by multiple occasions and not, yeah, and it's just an ongoing process. And then for me, it's more the question, I would be motivated to pay for a retaining wall. It's like if there's something failing, but we're paying for a fence to get re-erected. No, I don't see the motivation for us
What we are paying,
re-erecting fences. It's like, I really just don't see it as a road community.
2 points here. One is, yes, it'd be lovely to have a retaining wall there if we're, but it's not going to happen unless we pay for it, which will cost a bit.
Well, there's a
But,
retaining
it's
wall.
probably on the right of way, and we could justify it on that basis. The second is that we're not asking anybody to pay for this. We're just asking the road committee to put its blessing on the idea of Bruce going in there and reestablishing the footings for the post that hold the fence up.
Could I just say one thing quickly? What I see there is that there's a steel I-beam that was inside what you see from the road as far as the grape stake fence.
Yeah.
Somebody hit it, obviously. The beam is still standing, but the fence, obviously it's not, it's all crushed. But as far as the retaining wall, there's there's nothing going on there. Retaining wall,
Yeah, the fence
Why,
is
so-
just where that retaining wall ends. And unfortunately, the structure of the fence is very weak beyond the retaining wall, so it's starting to tip over after that hit, right after probably hits.
Do I then understand the request? The request is just a permission to re-erect the,
To butt out, don't get in the way and let it happen.
the fence on behalf of Alana? Or
but not at our
Or is-
expense.
to?
Isn't that true, Frank? It's not at our expense. It's just the road committee to say, sure, go ahead.
Yeah, it's
The
just
road
that
right away.
before Bruce can go in there and do,
Just repair it
Okay.
so forth. He
Alright.
wants to make sure that we're not gonna tell him to stop or get
in the
in the
middle of
way.
it.
Oh, that's, yeah, that's
Yeah.
fine.
No issue with
Sure.
repairing the fence.
I think that. So should we say just okay to repair the fence to its original condition?
Well, he just wants to get an estimate going. He wants to
Yeah, but
know.
that's my point. We are not talking
Yeah.
about.
We're not talking about paying for it.
No.
Why is it even our concern to get an estimate?
think-
I'm
I'd-
sort of.
No, it isn't. It isn't our concern to get an estimate. All we're doing is telling Bruce that it's okay for him to go ahead and do this, that we won't interfere.
Why would we tell Bruce? I mean, wouldn't it be the resident who would be working with Bruce? Why,
Yeah, I mean,
suspect
I
the
think,
resident is nervous about us saying this is not a good idea on our road, that theoretically the fencing should be done. But honestly, it's her fence. She should be
yeah.
able to repair
Yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, I think the way we word it is that we're not keeping her from repairing her fence. We just don't have a
Exactly.
position either
We will
way on
wash
it.
our hands of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we don't
for-
have a position on it.
For
Yeah,
very good reason and giving, little bits of past history. Bruce doesn't want to get caught in the middle on anything like this.
yeah.
You're not going to get caught in the middle.
Nobody wants to do it.
So it's okay to restore to original condition. That's fine.
Yeah. Annalise is raising her hand.
yeah, Annalise?
The purpose of the fence is to prevent lights from vehicles from shining into Elena's house. That's why it was put in. It might be worthwhile to note that somewhere.
We're not arguing the fence,
No, I
but
just,
yeah,
why is that fence there? It wasn't a long time ago and it is
That's
now.
fine. That's fine, but
It's
irrelevant.
just noting it.
Fine, but irrelevant. Fine, but irrelevant.
Okay. I'm returning again with the collapsed drain repair, which is down from 144 Santa Maria, outside the back gate of 20 Tynan. We had a small repair request that we did approve to see if we could keep that drain from collapsing further. The drain is collapsing further. That repair did not work or it didn't hold. The trucks keep going over that area of Santa Maria. And the drain is now, it's kind of collapsing in on itself. And about 6 inches of it is actually pulling away from the other portion of the drain. I think it probably needs to be looked at and figured out if there's another better way of trying to deal with this. It is the main drain that takes the road water from Upper Russell down the side of Santa Maria. So it is still patented, so water is still going through it. But if it collapses completely, obviously it won't. So I think we should at least look at, from a preventive standpoint, is there anything that we could do?
Teresa, could you explain to me where in the four-way intersection, is it in front of, as you drive up Santa Maria and take a right and there's your house on the left, is that 144?
No,
Or is it the other side of
144
the
is
street?
Helge and Paul's.
Yeah.
Oh, up
So
there.
it's,
Oh,
So that's part of
higher up the
paving.
hill.
it's part of it, you're gonna
Yeah,
repair
yeah,
that.
that's part of the paving.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know
Okay.
that. Because it's the whole, I have a picture of it, I'll pass
Yeah,
it
no,
along.
that's
It's
part-
all collapsed.
Yes, that's part of the paving plan.
Oh,
That's
you
what
know
I'm
that,
saying.
isn't that nice?
Mhm.
Okay, here it is. It's,
That's
yeah,
in their driveway. The-
it's the,
South.
it goes across their
Yeah,
driveway.
yeah. No,
Yes.
that's part of the paving plan on both proposals.
Okay,
where this
cool.
happened.
Then we've got it covered. That's wonderful.
Pretty picture.
That's it.
So this is the drain. Okay. And then the next request was to reconsider the trees at the bottom of Santa Maria across from 45 Santa Maria. And Jean, I think that was yours.
Oh, I know what you mean. Okay, as you drive down Santa Maria, just before you get to Portola, there's the tree that's got the big section of it hanging over the road. And you can see where it's been hit. And we talked about it before. It's lower than the fire department's requirement for trees hanging over the road, which was 13 and a half feet. I think the last I heard it was even higher. Anyway, I feel it's an
It's
obstruct.
18, I believe it's 18 feet, and we had the fire department come out and they said the tree was okay.
Well, but who was saying that? Because,
It was the fire department. It was their
well,
inspectors
but it's
came
not,
out.
well, it's not true. It's not true. It's not true that that's okay. And if it was, what's his name, the fire chief who just left, I think you said he said it, but he's
No,
not around anymore. So,
No, it wasn't, I know who you mean, but it wasn't him.
okay, so picture this, and I gave it before even talking about it. I think it's got to go. It's not a good looking tree. It's completely distorted and beat up and ugly. So we have plenty of nice oak trees that are nicer than that one. We did take down a very big oak tree down there that was sick. Well, I don't remember, it cost us 5,000 or 10,000. This one, excuse me, I was made aware of it again. And once again, was going down the hill and I saw couple guys in a car, one of our neighbor's kids probably, come flying off Portola Road and zip up Santa Maria so fast that if somebody had been in the wrong lane, which we're forcing trucks to do, there would have been a head-on crash. I don't think we should be forcing anybody under any circumstances to go out, to avoid the tree, to go out into the wrong lane, the oncoming lane. And if somebody has an accident, we're responsible because we've left that stupid looking tree there. I don't even know what the question is. I think we should make the road as appealing to the fire department as possible as far as being happy to come up here. And whether it's a fire truck or a delivery truck or whatever, because of that limb hanging over, somebody who got up the hill just fine because the other side of the street's fine, going down the hill is going to suddenly see this branch hanging out and have to go out and drive in the wrong lane, right where people come roaring off Portola Road to come up the hill. So I propose we either cut off that limb that's against the rules, shall we say, or cut the whole darn tree down. I think it's a danger and we're forcing people to drive in a dangerous position by having it there.
Well, nobody will ever accuse Jean of being a tree hugger.
I love trees. I don't like that one. I think that one's worthless. I mean, not every tree is wonderful. Human
We
lives are
find
more
to
important.
invite the fire department to come in and tell us to cut it down, but
Well, I'll go
otherwise,
talk to them and have them take a look at it then.
The first, I think in general, like with oak trees, like right there protected, so you need a permission to cut them down and you only get a permission if it's an oak death.
Lean in, please.
No,
And
and that's not true. Well, then let's
That's
trim it.
what-
Let's obey the fire department then and trim, measure up and cut it off that limb.
But that, yeah, so let's review, you said fire department was there, I think we'll just, that's something we don't need to do here. We just take in the note that we have to look back on what was discussed with the fire department, if the fire department was okay.
Well, who
Back
were
when-
they?
If it was not, then.
I have their name, I just don't
Well,
have to have it with me.
I
at the
don't
moment.
feel that that's adequate to say somebody told us 3 years ago from the fire department that it was okay. And I think they said, oh, it's because it might fall on the neighbor's property across the street. What do you do? Cut a tree off at the base? Or do you start at the top?
I also don't, there's not the, since I lived here, I think the tree, the one hit which is in there hasn't changed, so there hasn't been hit in the last 8 years, I would say from my side.
What hasn't changed?
When I moved in, that tree already had that branch already had the tree, the hit in there. And there was definitely not a new hit since I moved here.
It still is too low for trucks to go under, certain trucks, and they will go out in their oncoming lane. That's all I'm saying. Or I'm not saying they have been hitting it every other week, but we're creating a situation, I should say, where we're forcing traffic into a dangerous position.
My personal opinion on this, if you don't mind, is that a truck large enough to have to move over to avoid that tree is going to take it more than just one lane anyway. So it seems like a non-issue.
Okay, okay.
Those were the budget requests that came through. Did anybody have anything else that they know of that didn't come to me?
Can I raise my hand?
Yeah, you are on.
I'm on the agenda, so I don't
You're
know,
on
but
the agenda. You're on 8.
Yeah, so-
We're on 4 right now.
there may be a budget request in there. I just wanted to put that forth,
Okay,
So maybe
All right.
that's already,
yeah, okay,
So
okay,
thank you.
so we should add number 8, the rock wall is going to be a request to the budget. And we will take that up when we're finished with our other agenda items.
thank you.
Okay, okay. All right, item 5, spring cleanup, just some feedback. This was, it was, an interesting spring cleanup because it was, timing was difficult for some people. There were a lot of people who were away. We had rain on that Saturday, which really compromised, I think, some of the trimming that was done. And we had a cleanup crew coming on Monday, which was different because we normally would be cleaning up on Sunday and doing it ourselves. So I'd like to hear some feedback from your guys' perspective, how it went. Was it good? Was it bad? Was it something in between? Is this a model that we like, or is it something we should reevaluate for the fall cleanup? Anybody want to jump in?
The model you're referring to being the labor that we hired.
Right,
I think everything else is
everything
about
else
the
was pretty
same.
much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I think I wasn't here. I'm one of the guilty one, but I think the clean that is too much still on, too much was missed. And that from me, like, left and right, or it's just everywhere, everything is really high at the moment.
Mhm.
Just drive up Santa Maria, the lower side of the hill, that like bushes are really high. So this is typically where we, I think, trim more the second, third turn, who was also not touched, a lot of big trees. So I think we need to be, from my perspective, more aggressive to keep it wide and open, which I think we had, for 2-3 years in a row now, especially after PG&E did the big trimming in the first place, right? It looked really different. Probably also from scheduling, we should probably look and ask people for feedback on, do a poll. If people, know they're not here and they would like to be here, that they actually, that right now we make the decision here on the five noses sitting around the table, but it's probably better if, like, if we want to get more participation from the Hill, that we just ask them on a quick doodle poll, like click here, like one of these 3-4 dates. So we give them date options and just to see if we get more participation. I don't know how was the participation overall.
Well, I think it was not very great this time around because of the rain.
Yeah.
It was dumping rain on that Saturday. Yeah. And I think like me, I'm sure there's other people that had all their plans on Sunday and kept their Saturday open, but then Saturday got completely ruined and from a trying to go out there perspective, especially from weed whacking, you don't really weed whack so much in the rain. So, I think it's a hard year to judge if it was effective or not, because Saturday was, such an outlier in terms of what normally happens. I think the labor though that we hired was effective. I think it's helpful. Ensures we get the job done. And I think we always struggle with trying to get volunteers for that Sunday anyway.
Quick question, is there any reason why we can't have the labor come in after Sunday? In fact, did they this year? In other words, we could have 2 cleanup days, Saturday and Sunday, which would help the rain out for one day, and have the pickup done on Monday.
We had that. That was what it was.
Okay, I couldn't.
The pickup was Monday. The cleanup was Saturday and Sunday, and we had a cocktail party on Sunday.
I didn't see much cleanup on Sunday, I guess.
Yeah.
There was no expectation that people would clean up on Sunday. The expectation was that people would get out on Saturday and Sunday and do a really good trim, because we were relieving the volunteers of the pickup and instead hired staff to do the pickup. So
Right.
the
Saturday and
gardeners
Sunday
came
we
and did
trim
all the
and make
pickup.
piles. Mhm.
Hmm?
On Saturday and Sunday, we trim and make piles, right?
Correct.
So maybe we should expand our notion of what's going on in those 2 days to make it clear that you can work both Saturday and Sunday.
Well, I think people actually work other days as well. There were plenty of piles even before the weekend for people who had plans over the weekend. So I'm not sure it was, I think it was a multifaceted problem. It was that people not everybody participates. And it rained, and it was a weekend when there were a lot of people who had plans, so they were away, and they did send notes saying, gee, I'm really sorry, but I'm going to be away. And then we didn't have a crew of our own volunteers going and doing the canopy, which we do on a periodic basis, and I think it's a really helpful thing to do. But we didn't have one of our own trucks going around with hole cutters and stuff. So we missed that whole process.
I think participation has dwindled over the years and whatnot to a core. And I think perhaps one could suggest we have a cleanup week, that those who don't participate that may have a garden could create piles and whatnot, and then have a concerted effort, not just leave it for a Saturday and Sunday, because those with children do have a tendency to be a tad busy on weekends. And if you leave it up to one day, then, somebody will take care of it. Well, no, not necessarily. So perhaps we make it a cleanup week and suggested gardeners who are there, pile up stuff for the homeowners who are not participating. And then have a concerted effort for those volunteers who show up normally on Saturdays to do the extraordinary things. And then I'd have the cleanup guys, they'll come whenever. They don't have to come Sunday. Have them come Monday.
No,
That
they
gives it-
came on Monday.
And then have a cleanup weekend for those who, whatever guilt they might have, come out Sunday and make a pile.
Yeah, importantly, if people who, well, we can't shame people who don't want to physical labor into doing it, but we can shame them into using some of their resources to help out by volunteering their gardeners.
I would be happy to do that.
A drink leader.
Yeah, we miss our Ruby. and Ann Gannison, who we don't have these ladies available anymore. Maybe we can get somebody else to volunteer as our drink lady,
Mhm.
or drink man, or drink person.
We could offer drinks to any laborers who are working on the hillside that week.
That's right. Okay, any other feedback on that? Paving. Next paving.
Okay, paving, that's. So we started the paving process reaching out to 4 or 5 different pavers. We got feedback from 2, where 1 actually went out with us and worked with us on the hill, looking at each side, measure each side out, and send us a proposal. The second one came out and he said, well, I don't come out to measure if I'm not sure I'd get the proposal, because he did it the last time, one of the first paving projects. He came out, measured it all out, and then he didn't get the proposal. So I worked with him on just giving him the details, what we previously measured out and what to repair, and that was the second bid we got back. So overall, we got 2 active bids back. One was from the area paving, was the person who actually came out, worked with us, talked for us each situation and what we had. And we split it up into different work sections. One was just asphalt, swale, pipe work. So we have several pipe works in there. The one we just discussed, the other is the one across, you're crossing across, well, we cleaned it out in the winter time 3 times this winter, last winter. I don't know, one of the crossings over there where the pipe is also collapsed. We have that pipe work in there, road overlay, and then additional parking on next to your house, where it's just right now a mud pile where people drive in, that we basically widen that out a little bit for people who park there, that they don't park in the mud. So that came up to $111,000. We took the approach for basically doing all we could find of the hill, the remaining S1. We had it originally split as 2, but now looking at just what was left, we thought we'll just keep it all together as one project, not split it up in 2. So the second proposal, which was from Alanis, who didn't want to come out and remeasure, that came down to 156,000. More or less quoting on the same areas. We split up differently on this quoting scheme, but in total covering the same details overall. So I think we worked with Bay Area Paving before, was for sure way more responsive and working with us, discussing each individual item, walking with us through. And she came in significantly lower than the second bid, who was not willing to work with us. So my suggestion would be to stay with Bay Area Paving, and from a budget perspective, leave an additional 20% high spend, what we call overhead. But then, so from a budget perspective, it would be like another 22,000 on top. So we come out kind of 140,000. Something like this. This would cover all parts, remaining parts of the hill, and some of the paving, what we saw, no, piping, what we saw, and especially, you know, if we are already working on the road, we replaced the piping there as well. So we saw it collapsing and some sway. So this covers, yeah, that's what we're working on. So my proposal would be to make the approval that we go with Bay Area Paving, and but we approve for additional, 20% of contingency.
Can you define just for me, the basic areas that we're talking about? I mean, it's Upper Russell.
Yeah, so we covered the so behind the paving and at the, do you have access? Are you logged in? And
I
share the
was.
screen? I'm not logged in. So we covered Upper Russell, behind the water tank with a lot of replacement where roots come out and push the road up, taking the roots out and redoing part of the road, which is a larger section. Then part of the swale on the right side and Tynan. Then as Tynan gets really tight, the road repairs where it also gets lifted up on the downhill side. Repairs plus a coordinated swale all the way along from where it starts to form a swale along the road to the connector where we actually have a swale. So that's
Yeah,
a full
this is-
swale.
yeah,
A full
this-
swale. At the moment, we just have a dirt ditch in there. Yeah, and so this was making that a full swale in there and grabbing as much width of the road as possible. Plus, there's this one huge tree trunk, which is part there, which also lifts it up where the roots come out. So taking the part of the roots which obstruct the roadway out as he redoes the road. And then the intersection between the crossing between Tynan and Santa Maria. So on the upper Tynan side, this is where the pipe underneath was partly collapsed. And we had 3 times cleaning to do in the winter time to get the water flow going from one side of the drain to the other side. More or less the whole intersection there gets a rework. Then for sure the other side of the intersection gets a rework as well as the road is collapsed, and that really the repairs go on Tynan all the way down to more or less Bill's house, where the last road repair. Yes, that's the sheet where the last road repair basically ends. And then if we go Santa Maria is all the way from the top where we have some swale work on the left side. Then the area plus the pipe, what we talked about earlier, to fix to leading up to the intersection. And then Santa Maria going down multiple spots where we see which mostly cutouts where we see road repair, and then a larger section on the intersection to Russell Avenue, where it's basically the whole road width is collapsed. But in that sense, it's all the upper side of Santa Maria where we stopped the last time, plus Tynan and Upper Russell, the upper end of Russell, which we didn't do before, was not affected by the Carl.
So I'm wondering, the intersection that you have marked something to or up
This is
or
pipe.
something, or pipe, okay. Where it's the Tynan and Santa Maria intersection.
Yeah.
Always has a wet spot. And we've had Cal Water come up and look at that spot to see if there's a leak in the pipes. And they've always said, well, no, it just looks wet. But I think there are pipes down there that are leaking in some fashion. So I'm not understanding, are you talking about replacing some of those pipes that are down there?
No.
Digging them out?
Well, no, if I talk pipe, I only talk drain pipe and
Okay.
definitely not the cold water pipe. That's nothing we're gonna touch. We're only talking about one is the drain pipe, connecting the swale from the upper side of Tynan at this intersection to basically let the water drain from that side to the other side of Tynan at the Santa Maria crossing. And the second pipe is the excess what we talked about.
Okay. So it's not, I'm not sure what's leaking down there. That's all.
Yeah, and then, but that's definitely none of Bay Area
Not
paving.
a paving
business.
thing per se,
Correct.
but our plan is not to dig anything up.
No,
because
absolutely not.
if we were to dig it up, it would be a good thing in that we could discover what's going on down there as opposed to having a wet spot all the time. But, okay,
We do, what is it, like 511 or 711, whatever, like call before you dig. You know, just get them out there.
Just located.
Yeah, when they
They
just,
they
when,
don't, they don't,
no, but they find a pipe, right?
they could, you could call, yeah. you could call,
So,
locate if there's any pipes there.
yeah, they can tell us if there's anything in the ground.
I don't know if they have pipes down. They know that.
Oh, it's verified that Cal Water has pipes right there.
Definitely, absolutely.
Oh.
They absolutely have water pipes down there. No question about it.
They say that they're not leaking.
Right, but it's always wet. Natural water.
Spring.
And it
May be,
could be a spring or
could be
something.
a
Yeah, I mean,
spring.
could be,
It runs all year long.
yeah. So, all right, I
Yeah.
understand what we're not doing.
so it
Okay.
sounds like a, where there's smoke, there's fire situation, but Cal Fire is refusing, or Cal Water is refusing to believe it, so.
Exactly.
All right.
We've had them up there so different.
So that's basically the details. We have a 3-page document with outline each of these, like, okay, this is the address, this is the area we want to cover, and it's, I think, very clear if you stand in front of the address, what it's more or less the plan you see, like, if you stand at the address, you see the cracked area, and then it's a natural cutout for the written. So that's how the quote is structured. Questions to any of the proposals or the plans we put in?
Timing, how many days is this a process for, and road closures?
Let's quickly see what's in there. I definitely don't know out of my head. I don't.
Okay.
I'm also curious why the Aligns, the other company,
I'll
Or-
leave it, yeah, I'll let me-
yeah.
Yeah.
Why are they 30% more expensive? What's,
So first, he was really weird from my perspective because he didn't want to walk with us. Okay, look, I'm not the road expert. I can only point like if there's something really bad, but I need to rely on the paving to tell me like, I really recommend doing this and this fix here, right? And that's why I rely actually on the paving company to come back and work with us what we need to do. I see myself more as an administrator here because
Oh, yeah, I'm not-
I'm not good in paving, right? That's not my expertise. So this is where he actually didn't want to do this walk and every single measurement directly. He said like, no. You just tell me what area you want to do and that's what I want. So
This was an
That-
interesting interaction from my standpoint. This guy was being a reasonable businessman. He was pretty sure that he wasn't going to get this bid, given our history. So he didn't want to put any effort into it. And I think we're going to run into that increasingly. Because basically he knows that he's not going to win out against Bay Area paving. And he's not going to win out because he knows we've used Bay Area paving before. And so he's not willing to go very far to make an estimate for us. And
Yeah.
may have made a high estimate just so he didn't have to deal with us anymore.
yeah, he was very bullish about he has the best price per area. And because he literally only goes by specific, okay, at the end, like, asphalt removal and replacement, it's a unit cost of $12, and we have 6,862 square feet of failed pavement, so $80,000 right there. So he goes more just by a square footage area, which we probably
Yeah.
can also extract out, but that's what it comes back at. He literally quoted on me re-summarizing and reformatting the quote I got from Bay Area Paving, just to put it, in the quotable form.
yeah, it's hard to compare the quality between the two. Like maybe this other provider has got better quality than Bay Area Paving. Personally, I think Bay Area Paving did a very good job on all the paving we bought them for last time. The only thing thing I'd like to maybe see them do a little better, I know you'd agree with me on this, is the slurry job. It seemed thin, obviously, in some places, so. Yeah, so I mean, that's maybe one area we just need to stay on top of them. I think, otherwise they did great work. So, I wouldn't see a reason why we wouldn't go with them, particularly because they have the best price, so.
With regard to Bay Area, I don't know how we do this. I mean, Teresa and I were pretty familiar with Walter and the fiasco at the bottom of Leroy. But they did it wrong in the first place, and then when they came back and after weeks and months and so forth and redid it, it wasn't that great. It was very inadequate. Somehow, when they made the bid earlier, I know Frank and maybe Georg and I walked around with them down in the lower part of the hill. And the things we talked about and said had to be done, they did it wrong. They did the opposite of what we told them. And I think I counted 5 different places. So somehow, I don't know how we get them after a walkabout to agree to do it the way we want it. They know about paving. We know how the water works on our hill. They don't. And they screwed up.
That was Bartolotto. That wasn't Bay Area paving. The last one was Bartolotto. The one before was Bay Area paving. And there were some issues with what Bay Area paving did.
Right.
And that's actually part of the quotation. So I had them add in small parts like the pass over, you put the sandbag each winter, like that's part the run into the catch basin on below your property where it always run the ditch is not deep enough.
It's not deep enough. Was that Bay Area who did that swale?
Yes, that's them, but they'll agree for putting in an additional lifter for keeping the water in there. Yeah, so I think these things are just where probably we need to, be a little bit more on top of him. I'm not around during a regular business day, so that's probably something, Frank, you can, be the
Eyes and
ears and keep a poke on them to deliver more on our expectations and devil of us is in the detail, I was saying, right?
Well, in this last case, so it was Bartolotto, I guess, this last year. But that's not who did down where I am, and they didn't come down, Bartolotto didn't do that. This is Bay Area before.
Bay Area before.
Okay,
and
so
then Bartolotto.
we stood right there, honestly. I sound grouchy, and I am about it, because you spend money and you tell them what you need and they don't do it. When you wrap around the hairpin turn that surrounds what was Singleton's house, they're gone now, but across from Tom French, you come around there. Just as one example, we stood right there. That's where the log, crosses over and keeps people from falling into that big ravine. I stood right there and said, whatever you do, do not make this hole any smaller. This is where water comes in and goes behind the log and drops in. They made it 50% smaller. On and on and on. All these things they did. It's like the same person didn't never even come back again, or there was no record of what we said. I've griped about that before, but I mean, how do you have them do what you told them to do 2 weeks before without standing right there with them? Should you have a written description or pictures or something?
Probably.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, yes. Yeah, supervise. And
Well, we tried that with
yeah.
Walter, who said, oh, yeah, I know how to do it. And then he does it wrong. Across
Actually,
Leroy. We
Walter
stood right
did it
there
wrong.
with him.
I was standing right there and I said, make sure that the water goes down this way when you use that paving machine. And the operator of the paving machine said yes. And they put it in a way that they thought would make the water run down there. They just turned out to be wrong. It wasn't a failure of communication or anything. It was just a failure of eyeballing the way the water would go.
Well, it usually goes downhill. Sometimes it goes uphill when it comes up through like the crackling, like in the intersection of Tynan and Santa Maria. And that used to be this way down by the lower water tank. If you have a weak spot, let's say there's water pressure, it's really saturated, it's going to find the weakest place, which is the alligator, what do we call it, crocodile skin or something, and it'll ooze up, even though there isn't a broken pipe or something. It's just pressure from underneath, I think.
Yeah, there's always this problem of one person understanding. If two people look at the same thing, they understand it differently. So I think you should be there when these things happen as well, Jane, because often I.
Well, back to Walter. I was there, for example, when they were preparing to do the swale across the bottom of Leroy to keep water running on the uphill side of Santa Maria to go into the big fancy drain that's supposed to go in. Stood right there. The trucks were all ready. I stood right there and talked with Walter. And they went ahead and did it wrong anyway. Maybe they
Yeah.
don't like women telling them what to do. I don't know.
Well, yeah, that's maybe one thing, that they don't like women telling them what to do. And that's just a problem that I've run into often in my career, and keep browbeating people about it. But yeah, maybe both of us need to stand there. At any rate, this is not something for our current meeting.
No.
Yes, I think, look, realistically, I think it's probably also the part of the distributed work we do, because if I go out with Frank, we only look on what we look on, and he only quotes on what we talked about specifically, and then I cross-checked, and that all turns out to be right. So I think it's the question is now, you probably have a different expectation on what should be done, which is then not covered in his quote, and then he has very little motivation for doing it right. Right, or adding it additionally, and so I think it's just where we just probably also need to, how about do you specifically review on the quote that we got from him, just to make sure what are the items we should really watch out as it gets executed, because that's right. We can't ask him to do more. Well, we do ask him to do more anyway, because new things come up, right, as we work process, but he can only quote and work on what we've done. So I think it probably would be good for reviewing. Probably we just circulate what we got from him.
Sure.
I think would be helpful for everybody.
Have
Just
it, but so if you give it to me, I'll be happy
it's
to
in the
pass it.
Google folder. I should. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. I'll send that to you.
Okay, then I got
I
it.
think it would be good, and probably also then in prep, as we get closer, we probably make one final run with because he starts marking it up then anyway, so that we have a common understanding between us as a team on what should be done and what are the critical items to watch out for. I think that's really a learning from last time, that we as a team are better in sync with each other. I think really good point.
So, I mean, I recommend that everybody review the file. I think that's important. What I recommend also, though, is that we don't delay trying to schedule him.
Oh.
Yeah, so I think if we do kind of a approval maybe tonight on what has already been provided, recognizing that we can come back and do some change orders with him, I think at a later day. I think he'd be happy to add more to the bill. Yeah, so.
Actually, Chris has been very flexible with us. He's been willing to do a change order during the process of doing the work. And, as long as we have some easy, quick approval process. And in the past, I think it's just been my word on occasion. But he's been, Chris Quinn by Bay Area Paving has been very flexible and makes this process very easy where we have a difference of opinion about what our expectations were.
And then the other thing is to be sure that there is someone who is the foreman on site, that we know that's the person in charge. Because I think, if I'm not mistaken, we had a little bit of trouble with, Chris wasn't there at the time that Bay Area Paving did the last job. And we didn't know, or at least I didn't know, who was the second in command, or who was the site foreman, who was the person that we would go to and say, hey, is this happening properly? It was a little more diffuse. We knew for Barloto, it was Walter. We went to Walter, and he was the guy who was in charge. That was it. So we need someone who's going to be there, and that we know that that's the person who has some authority to do our bidding.
Yeah, so I think we got some good lessons learned from the last time around, and we just need to make sure that as we're planning for them to start, that we plan on our side to be present and we know who the people are and so forth, right? But yeah, I think we should decide on, let's get them scheduled.
Yeah. So what I would suggest that we do, police board is 111K, that we do another 29 contingency approval already. For A, stuff always comes up, which is different than we thought it is. Then B, then we have more flexibility of adding small stuff left and right. As we get closer, where he's always flexible, so I would request that we do an approval of 140K in total.
Which is just 33,000 more than what we had actually had in our budget for this year. Which is
Yeah.
pretty amazing. It was last year.
Yeah.
Well,
It was 137,500 last year with the contingency. 150 plus 15.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so we're at 165 total right now. I say leave it as is.
So your recommendation was to approve an estimate of 165 for paving? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. We could, I mean, we could swap around. We could say, let's set it at 120 and give ourselves a 20% contingency. Which is 154. I mean. I don't know, I'm 144.
Okay, well, let's go back. So I think one is
We have to.
just the approval.
approval of the
And
fund.
then if there's additional stuff for the budget, right? Do we think we might need other stuff for budget? That's the way I would look at it. So what I would say, let's just discuss now approval. 140. Okay. Okay.
Yeah, let me bring it back up. Come on, come back up. Yeah. The only reason I'd say we probably would bring it down something closer is that the town accrues for anything that we didn't that we budgeted for but haven't spent. And so we end up carrying the accrual through the fiscal year, and then we go big reverse at the end of the year. So if we want to carry the bigger accrual, we can do that. But if we have a pretty good sense of what the number is, maybe we just bring it down to the closer number that it actually is. They carry the accrual through the whole year, and then it carries over into the next fiscal year, and they have to do a reversal. And yeah.
How about finance minister? Matt, what's your number you would propose?
We're doing, we do 120 plus 20% contingency.
So 120 plus 24. So that's
146.
144.
Yeah.
46. No, 120.
144.
144, sorry,
We were at 165.
right.
Any picture?
Okay, so can I make are we officially ready for, okay, make the motion to approve 144? Okay. Perfect.
Aye.
And I'd like to propose.
Aye.
And a further proposal that we accept the bid from Bay Area Paving with the proviso that each member of the committee review the specifics, and if there are other things that need to be adjusted or added, that we have some a conversation about that, but at least get the process going with Bay Area Paving. Yeah, Jake.
All right, so for my communication, I want to just reiterate what I wrote down on communications with him of open questions. So first, of course, timing, getting in on schedule. Question about duration, how long it would take. Question about road closures. Understanding on the sealant. What was sealant?
The
Seal.
slurry seal.
Lorry field?
Yeah.
Do we have that on there? I don't think we do. this time.
Maybe this is where our contingency is going.
Yeah, but okay, but definitely want to have a clear understanding of foreman role back then. Anything else comes to your mind?
This is last time they did that thin overlay to seal the old pavement. You know, kind of like the tar you see people put on their driveway. Is there any water repellent? Yeah.
So we do have asphalt removal and replacement. We have asphalt swale, we have culvert height work, and we have petromat overlay for off-road. Then we have the parking lot. So there's no sealant.
Yeah, we may need to.
So that one answer, I asked him already in general slurry seal, and he really is not a fan of slurry.
Well, there was
Waste of money.
two that I remember. One was there was the sealant that they put on top, which is the thin stuff that we selected, and there was a thicker slurry seal that I think they actually called slurry seal, where they actually put aggregate
Yeah.
into it, and that's not what we were getting. It like
We
tripled the
have
cost.
Zero slurry seal in our budget, or zero sealing, that's. Yeah, I think there's no,
Okay.
no sealant. There's zero seal in the dock, in this floor, so.
There's something that says in my head that they don't do that, but maybe it was Bartolotto that didn't do it.
I don't know, because it comes up between us, because we're not road experts, so I ask him every time, what do you think? Because Howard actually recommends it. And he thinks it's a waste of time, but it's also you always have to ask question who you are. Do you ask somebody who relies on repairing roads and not making them work for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think that's, for me, more a question to Howard, who would be more an independent view on these things, technical independent view, right? That's it. But
Okay,
there's
so-
no seal comment, not a single word seal.
So the lower Santa Maria job, he said, after the work, blow clean the road, blah, 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 apply 2 coats of seal. And then repaint the yellow center line, which we don't want him to do that again. But but 2 coats of seal is what he put in there. And that section of the agreement was 17 grand.
The last, the first page, the last.
That was the
page.
first go around in 21. Yeah.
Yeah, that's different, but we don't have a single seal word in our current proposal.
Okay.
Right, but just to make sure that it then goes in the contingency.
Yeah.
aspect, right?
And I was worried too, if it was something like 50 grand, then our contingency wasn't the right number, but it was 17 grand for the whole lower Santa Maria. I mean, we got coverage, I think, that's the point. So we can inquire about it later.
I'll
Yeah,
just put
okay.
it in, with that point, right?
Okay, so we've approved the numbers and we've approved Bay Area paving. Okay, just want to make sure our minutes are clear on that. Are we good on paving? Okay,
I'm good. Yeah.
all right. Frank, striping. Frank, are you? still
What do you
there?
want me to say about striping?
Last time I saw Paris, I thought, maybe I'm wrong, that when things dried out, that, you and Tim were gonna try to do a little.
We did.
You
Yes, we
did?
did do a little.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed
That's the
it.
key word.
Yeah, we intend to do some more.
We're gonna do more.
Okay,
Your labor and effort was greatly appreciated, though.
I'm really sorry. Okay.
you.
All right, we're just gonna keep you on the hook on that one then, okay?
Yep.
When the weather is clear, he and Tim will restripe some of the faded portions of the road.
You can put in there, we will restripe some more faded portions.
Okay, more, right?
Do we have any line sections in the paving area that we're just talking about?
So that one, we said we want to wait until we're done with the paving, and then we look at the expensive
Quality. the quality of
striping.
paving.
Well, that, and I thought we were talking about that for the lower Santa Maria section. For the upper that we just approved, is there any striping sections up there that we want to consider for the budget?
There is a little bit. We had some striping going up the lower part of Russell for the first turn, I think. Then we had some striping around the hairpin on Russell there. Sorry, it's not on Russell, but the hairpin where before Russell starts up the steep part of the hill, right below your house.
So it's probably not enough to have them come out for just that. Maybe we
No.
do this paving job, and then when we do finally have them come out, we'll just have them do the whole thing at once.
Yeah, we can maybe expand the striping when we actually have a company come out to do it.
Yeah,
Mhm.
okay. That makes sense.
Do we have any money in the budget for striping?
No,
Is that something we should put in for next year?
we wouldn't get to the lower Santa Maria section in this next fiscal. It'd be the year after.
Yeah. We had a bid, I don't remember what the amount was, it was something over 10,000.
Yeah,
And
but it was like 17 grand or something like that.
yeah, it will be higher, I'm sure, when we come back.
Yes.
Mm.
Why would we not want to do it when we're paving?
Well, we don't want to do it when we're expecting a bunch of paving trucks to come up and down the hill.
No, 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 no,
So
no.
the question was, on the expensive writing, the question really was more centered around what do we do as maintenance? Are we actually going for the every 7 years slurry, so 5 years slurry seal? Or not? And that was basically we basically picked the decision down the road to make the decision when it's actually due, and it's not due at the moment, but we decided we want to do this in combination with the decision. Do we want to actually do a slurry seal? I think that's basically the combination,
Okay,
where we said like next year, the slurry seal would be officially due from a schedule perspective, because that was the first part of the road, what we did.
okay.
So that's why we decided to postpone the decision on the expensive
Quality
stripe and the quality striping, which I think we all want to do, but it was dependent on the decision what we want to do
Okay.
with regular maintenance.
Okay, so the striping was 11,250.
Hmm.
So we do that after we do the slurry seal at the bottom of the hill,
If we decide to do that.
if we
yes,
decide
right.
to do that.
And I think my math is wrong. I think it's 2 years we're doing the lower section.
Mhm.
Right, 3 years then, to do striping?
You do it 2 years. So we do the lower slurry seal 2 years from now, and at the same time, we do the striping.
Yeah, well, let's continue the discussion, I think.
Yeah.
When we get there.
It's not a this year budget thing. I
Not
think
this
is the
year
point,
budget. This year we do big
Yeah.
paving,
Alright.
and then we
I was under the misconception that we were gonna try to do the striping this
No,
coming budget
no,
year. Okay. All right, anything on anything more on striping? Drains? Is there any drain information that discussion we need? I hope not too. Wynn, are you still with us?
Oh, yeah, I've been here the whole time. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry to keep
good.
you waiting.
It's okay. I didn't know, but
Um,
it's good.
Okay, so we're on your rock wall. And
Yes, thank you.
apparently I put the wrong address down. I apologize to
Thank you.
everyone.
That's okay.
We do know that you are for.
Thank you.
Somehow the devil made me
Ah,
type a 6, so
Yeah.
it's in your court. Okay, Wynn.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you all.
We understand, some of the background, and so just take it away.
Okay, I appreciate it because that was my question. Do we need background? It doesn't seem like we do. And you may also want to notice if you think it's pertinent is where you say rock wall for Russell, you might want to add the word in repair. I don't know if that matters because it is a repair to the
Right.
wall. And I think everybody knows, as you said, the disaster mitigation and the whole thing that went on. So the good news is, oh, first I did want to say thank you to everybody for helping, because we have right here an approved permit. So that is great news. And what that means is that the road will be wider because we'll build it back to the original foundation of where the rock wall was, and it will of course be safer. So I'll just go over some very high level numbers and then we can figure out how best to proceed. We did get the permit, close to 2 weeks ago, but I wanted to prepare for this conversation and then see where this conversation led before anything else got done. I've talked to several different contractors. Just to give you a sense for sort of the scope of the work to date, we have spent north of $30,000 on the rock wall. That includes cleanup and removal, everything that was falling into the road that was about to fall in the road, anything that needed necrotic tissue that needed to be removed. Labor, of course, was a biggie, engineering costs for geoforensics, and additional materials to put that rock wall back in place. Once we got the requirement, I was going to say request, I realized it wasn't a request, the requirement for a permit when somebody called, then we had an additional expenditure of $2,800 for geoforensics because they had to do more write-ups and things like that. They had to formalize what they had told us on how to do it. And we spent $3,675 for the permit itself. So an additional, $6,500. So we're pushing like $40,000 that we've invested in the hill. And in order to finish it off, I think, it's anywhere from $18,000 to $22,000. That's just a rough estimate. I kind of feel like, what we've already spent, but at this point it's like, help, I need help. And I would love to, gain some help both on the financial aspect of it and also the just the navigating, because now I have there are additional costs which I could go through, but now I need to manage the permit process with the town as well. I had to bring in a general contractor who will have the appropriate insurance for the laborers, which before it was sort of covered under my home insurance, but now it's not because it's a whole permit process. We need to lower the wall again to take it down to 2 feet. The good news is that they did approve, repairing the wall so it will still look as it did when the wall was originally built and the parts that we could see. So it will still be beautiful and it will still be in keeping with the neighborhood. And it will have excellent drainage. We will need to close the road, I think, down to 1 lane, because when we start to take down the existing rock wall that's there, I don't want to trek it up the top of the hill because it's going to go right back in, if that makes sense. So basically what they're requiring we do is take the wall that's, the part that we've already built up, take it down to 2 feet, lay in a framework, like a metal fabric, so to speak, and I can show you the plans, and then take it back up again. So it'll be that much more secure. So, so that's kind of where it stands. And so to finish it out, I would like some help, both in just sort of going through the whole process and also as an expenditure, because I do feel it is a benefit to the whole hill to have a, side of the hill, a large part that is safe, that's not spewing stones and dirt and everything else that's coming down, and that it will be wider in keeping with the original road. So that will be nice. The original, where the wall was originally built, and a lot of stuff had come over we don't know when it was built, 40 to 80 years that it was built. There's a lot of dirt that came down into the road. We just stopped it before it completely blocked the road. So I don't know if that's a subcommittee or something like that to discuss.
So I think the first question when that we've discussed is whether and if the road committee has any responsibility for this wall at all. So I think that's our first get-go. And it's a hard conversation. And I'm not sure, I'm not sure exactly where that conversation will lead.
Well, my feeling on that, I appreciate that. I mean, I understand, and you're my neighbors. The 2 thoughts I kind of have around that, or maybe 3 thoughts. One is we have some precedents up on Trinity. And so basically, as the hill started to slide down into the road, I called my guys and said immediately, let's get the dirt out. So, you know, Trinity would be the first sort of point of reference that we have in terms of the road coming together. That would be number one. Number two is that the road is, you know, going to be wider and better. That's number two. There was a third one in there. I don't know. I mean, my feeling is that we have some precedence on this, and that it is a roadway that is used by everybody all the time. So it's important that we have a safe wall. And yeah, that's what I think.
Could I ask a
Oh,
couple
wait,
questions?
sorry. Another question I was gonna say is just all day long when neighbors were driving by, when I was out there on the street, everyone's saying, hey, we're paying for this, right? Or we're helping. So, I mean, I think there is community support, and there is an attitude on the Hill, a feeling. And if I needed to get letters or whatever, if that would be helpful to the road committee, I'd be happy to do it, to go out and survey the neighbors and say, hey, you know, you saw this coming down. How do you feel about contributing to it as part of the overall budget? I would be happy to do that. But I do feel that that's an important point to note as well, is that many neighbors were saying, hey, we're paying for this, right? And I said, well, you know, I started it on my own.
So I have a couple questions. Why did it fall when it fell? And was drainage involved? And I know a lot of people have gray water systems on the hill. I've seen soap suds coming down there.
Yep.
So what's the plan, first of all, to make sure this never happens again? And
Yeah,
are there
I mean,
changes in drainage plans for your
There are.
property?
There are. And so I feel like, you know, part of this is looking at the benefit of the permit is that there are even more requirements in terms of where we know routing the drainage will go. And so I feel like in doing a deeper dive on the numbers, what I would like is to sit with some people and say, look, here's the part that, you know, we're going to put like 2 basins up atop. That's clearly my property, my thing would be a drainage thing. So that would be something that I would feel I would be responsible for. But in terms of reconstructing the wall, I would like some help. So in terms of why did this happen now? In some ways it's hard to say. I mean, certainly because of water coming down. But if you take a drive up Highway 84, I mean, roads get blocked all the time. And why did that happen? And Trinity Lane, why did that happen? I mean, it happens because the walls are old. They've been there for 80, you know, they've been there for 80 years or 40 or 60 years. So stuff is going to come down.
So one other question about making the road wider. The section that we see exposed rock, that'll be wider, but that only goes for a few feet, or is there a plan to make the width
Excellent question.
continue, or what?
Well, I wish we could. I mean, that's an excellent question, Jean, because when I, you know, I hear it out my window and I look out and like, oh gosh, and they get stuck a little higher up, even worse than where the section where it's going to be wider. So, I mean, I have no plans to widen it above, because again, this is, you know, a very significant expense to repair this section of the wall. But if we as a community wanted to look at how to widen that further up the part of the wall, I would be all for it, because I see that that's an area where people get very uncomfortable and, you know, scrape each other or nag each other. It's dangerous. So yeah, I would love to see it wider even further up, but we're looking at, this is permitted for a certain section of the wall. If we wanted to look further up and say, how can we push it back to where the original line was? Yeah, that'd be great.
I guess, so if I could weigh in here. So when completely sympathetic to what you're going through right now, and if it happened at my house, I'd probably be doing the same thing you're doing right now. So I totally get it. The fact that it's engineered now is actually great to hear, because I think it is providing some assurances in terms of its longevity over time.
It
I
was
think,
before, just so you know, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you. I
I'm
had
sorry.
an engineer come when I first went to repair it, because I was freaked out. I said, is my house going to fall into the road?
Yeah,
The architect and they said, you need to throw rocks at this immediately. But, you know, so I did some emergency work that I did on my own. I said, okay, you know, my house is the one that's potentially at danger. It was very scary when that first
Yeah.
happened.
I can imagine. So yeah, like I said, I can understand how you got to the spot.
Mhm.
You know, I think candidly, I don't know how to proceed in terms of this. I think that maybe a subcommittee discussion is probably gonna be warranted. When I think that, and this is, one person's perspective here, but I think, it's the keeping with precedent. To the point that you were making earlier, there's some precedent with Trinity and, perhaps some other spots on the Hill. I think that's the thing we just want to make sure that we're consistent with, because, I'll be candid. It seems like every time we get in a conversation, regarding repairs on the Hill, the first reaction is everybody's saying, oh, is this in the road right of way? We got to get surveys. Can we
Yeah.
get property lines drawn? That's going to cost thousands and thousands of dollars in itself, right? And we don't have that drawn all over the Hill. I think we've got a lot of old documents that kind of sit out there that, who knows how valid they are at this point. So, I think this panel here relies on the judgments based on precedent that, we've done in the past. And so I think that's the thing we just want to, have a smaller conversation on to go back and review and understand how it aligns to precedent before we make any decision.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. And I think that, I'm giving you like estimates and things like that. And that's something. And so I would like to be very reasonable in looking at this together as a team, because we are a team and we are a neighborhood, and
Right.
we take care of each other and we take care of our own property. And so for me, when I saw that thing sliding down, I was calling my gardeners at like, I don't know, remember 5 o'clock on a Sunday night saying, I need you guys, because everything was sliding. And, you could
Yeah.
see it. It was like this in the road. And so rather than wait until it dumped in the road and did close the road, we started taking the debris away. And
Yep.
so, that's where I feel like, okay, I'm a responsible neighbor and I want to do what's right for our house, my house, and for the community vis-a-vis the road, which I also use, my dad and I also use. So, then I want to look at the numbers and say, okay, so if I'm putting drainage above my house that's now required by the permit, I don't feel that that's something that I would ask the road committee to pay, because I feel like it's good to have good drainage and that would be something that I should be responsible for. But in terms of like resurrecting that rock wall, and again, I was happy to like jump in and say, okay, like I want to build this all by myself. But when you're talking about you're already 40,000 in and it's going to cost another, again, 18 to 22,000. And part of that was that somebody called, they said a neighbor, we don't know who it was that called, but somebody called, and that definitely cost, 16,000 extra probably for that. I kind of went through it like, okay, the permit fee, the geoforensics, the additional, geoforensics that's going to cost now after we have the permit, the rebuilt that we're gonna have to take down a portion, and we're gonna have to put up a portion, and then so all of that is like close to $18,000. Just that is like additional cost because somebody called it in and said you need to get a permit. So yeah, I mean, I was happy to be generous with what I could do. You guys know I like to trim the bushes along there. I like to keep it neat and contribute in that way that I take care of this property. But at this point, it's like, I need help from my neighbors. This is,
Yep.
It's ridiculous. And it is something that benefits the entire hill. And, as I said, many people driving up and down, yeah, we're paying for this, right? Yeah, well, hopefully they're going to help now. And I think that's very reasonable for me to ask for help for something that's going to widen the road, secure an area that was already sliding down, for many years. I mean, Frank might jump in, but for many years, this thing was spitting stones down. And so I mitigated, I mean, there are other parts. Anyway, that enough said. I feel like I've done my part as a good neighbor, and now I'm asking you guys to be good neighbors too, and do what I think is reasonable, is to help facilitate with the finishing of this wall.
Yeah, which I think is fair. I think us giving it attention through further review is fair. And
absolutely.
I'd say we probably just don't have all the data in front of us to be able to make a good judgment call right now. But I think that's our.
Oh, yeah.
My recommendation is that we could do that.
Thank you.
Have
I'm
a further
not looking for a
conversation.
decision. Sorry, I'm not looking for a decision tonight. I appreciate that. I just, again, we're a team here. We all live on this hill together, and I'm just telling you, this is where it's at. And so I need some help at this point. I would like to sit down with, whatever a subcommittee would look like, a couple of you or all of you, if you want to sit around my, dining room table or something, you go like, look, these are the numbers, these are the receipts, of what I've already paid. And this is the projection of what's going to cost going forward. And, and again, what I've paid, I feel like, it's a huge amount, but it's done. I've paid it, but I need some help now.
Yeah. Yes, I can only second what Matt said. I think it's a good idea that we have one or two people just sitting down, sorting out the detailed numbers with you.
That would
Not
help.
just as a subcommittee, and then come back with a the rationale and recommendation, where it's like with sync between you and sync between this one member for us then to make a decision. So it's, you know, the detailed level, we don't have to go through all the detailed single invoices. That's something you do separately with them and work out a solution, and then we come back with one proposal. I think that sounds totally reasonable from my side.
Thank you.
Bill, you got an opinion?
Whether or not I want to share them. We have other-
Can't hear.
That's good reason for that.
Can you lean in?
Um,
Okay.
I mean, we've had other precedents where we've done repairs to the road and whatnot. My only concern with your area, Win, is that you're doing a portion of that wall. So
I agree. I
what,
hear you.
what are we doing if the rest of the wall comes down? That's just a thought, and I apologize, but that's what I'm thinking. The other thing is, I'm not sure, we have done other things, and I'm not sure what the precedent was for that and how we came about to do that. I think we need to discuss it because it's obviously not the first time that it's happened, nor is it going to be the last time that it happened. But once we start, I understand you need help. Trust me. I have one of the largest pieces of property up there. I've lost
Yeah.
trees and other things and slides and other. So,
The precedent's
we
already,
have to be,
it's
we have to
already
be
started.
careful.
Yeah.
We
it's
have to be
already started.
careful in the fact that, you know, once we start this ball rolling, where does it stop?
I
And,
understand that.
on the other hand, it does impact the road. I mean, I drive by it all the time and look at it and go, I wonder when that's gonna get fixed.
Yeah.
So I hear you and whatnot. It leaves me in a quandary as to what the right direction goes. I mean, more than happy, you know, if we could, you know, we'd help everybody out, but we're just a committee trying to do the best we can with what we have.
Yeah, I understand. It's people. We're all people. And, you know, hopefully we're helping each other and working together. And I just feel like it's time to work together. I mean, again, I just want to pick up the ball and make it go away easily and take care of it. And it would be beautiful and the road would be wider. And but it's time to have a broader discussion.
We need to discuss it. We will need to discuss it.
Tim, you have anything you want to add?
No, not this time.
With Annalise.
Annalise, you've got your hand up.
Okay, you can hear me okay?
Yep.
Yes.
The issue of precedent. One of the precedents that is very dangerous to do is, please, Win, understand me. I'm being very legalistic about what I'm about to say.
I know you're a good person, Annalise, and I know you
Yeah.
always try to do what is legal and what is right. So it's okay. Our friendship will not be impacted by whatever you say. So thank you. It's okay.
Okay, so not too long ago, we have people's tax money. And that is what makes the biggest difference here, because as a city government, essentially, we have taxes, and we chose to do the taxes so that we would be bound by the way towns have to do things. So, and that was to get the money so that we could do anything. So that's step one. We are a government body. Second, we did have a recent precedent where somebody did something before the fact. You're doing a great job. You're not asking us to fix anything you've already done. You're doing it the right way. You're about to do more and you need to do more. So that's a good section of the precedent. But it is very, very important for every property to know where the property line is. Now, you mentioned that you didn't know whether or not the rock wall was on private property or not. The town would not have given you a permit or allowed you to have a permit unless you had given them information showing it was on your property. They
I'm not-
don't do that.
Okay, well, I'm not sure about that because there was definitely no request upon the town, to my recollection, to say, is this on your property or isn't it? They.
I thought
indicated
that
it-
might be true.
Yeah.
I
so
thought
we
that might
didn't
be true.
We didn't do any surveys. You know, we didn't have to do any surveys. They have a. you know,
Okay,
a
so
drawing,
but the
a drawing of
the whole
property.
right. So,
It's
but to
not done
that
by
point,
surveyor. Yeah.
to that point, they believe that that is your personal property because in the past, what they've done is if it's not on your personal property, they've said, that's not us, not our business. So
Well,
these are facts. So let me keep going and then
Wait,
I'll
wait,
be
I
able
need
to.
to interject here one thing. I'm sorry, honey. I just need to do it because I'll tell you why, what happened. When they came by and said, you know, what are you doing? And I said, repairing the wall. They said, somebody called and now you need a permit. And I said, it's a repair of an existing wall. They said, we know if nobody called, we wouldn't need to get a permit. But because somebody called, you need a permit. So they didn't care where it was. All they said was you need a permit.
That's very interesting to know because that would be something to follow up on because I think other members of the committee can attest to the fact that they have told us we do not give permits unless it's on private property. So that's something to look up,
Yeah.
to look into and find out how that happened.
In fact,
So-
one more thing, honey. We also tried to say to them, it's a private hill. These are private roads. We don't need a permit. And once again, they said somebody called, we must issue a permit now.
There's more to that statement that they should be making. So let's find out what that is, whatever that is. And there's always the option of a GoFundMe. If the Hill really wants to do it, that gets around the fact that we are a government body and have to act like a government body.
Yeah.
And there might be a lot of people on the Hill who would be willing to do a GoFundMe. So those were just a few things I want to say. We'll see how that works out. And I'm very interested to see what the town is going to conclude about a permit that may or may not be on private property. So thank you.
Yeah, that's interesting. Thanks, Annalise.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything to add to the discussion at this point? So we propose that a subcommittee take a look at the issues that have been raised regarding this repair work and come back to the full committee with a recommendation. Does anybody want to volunteer to embark upon that task?
Who wants to work with me on this?
Bill, you're great. Anybody else?
I'll do it.
I'm gone the next couple of weeks, but I mean, it depends on your timing. I can help if it's
I can s-
mid-July.
I can start and then hand off to you unless somebody else wants to.
Where's Frank?
Georg's got his hands full of paving.
Oh, I can't see you guys. It's too small.
Tim, do you
Hop
want
in
to
it.
hop in here? No.
Oh, I can see.
Okay.
I would like to steer clear of this process until it requires approval. I'm a little too close to it, I guess is the
Very
answer.
good. That makes sense. Thank you. Okay.
Okay. So it sounds like Bill and I will work with you, Win.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, Bill, I think it's especially good since the question that you raised in terms of the adjunct, I don't know, the other stuff. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it affects the road, so we're involved.
I think it's complicated and we'll work together to come up with a solution that works for everyone.
Thank you.
Annalise, you have your hand up?
What did I do
Annalise?
Before, was your hand up from before?
I
Yeah,
don't
think
know.
should have taken it down.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Win. Is there anything else that we need to do? Okay. Anything else, guys? All right, next meeting, I propose we target 2 months from now, or 3 months, or 6 months, or
Next year.
next year. Um, Do we need to meet before paving? Well, we need to get some more information about the timing and all that, so.
Yeah, sure. So that'll come out and I'll just loop everybody in. I think we don't necessarily need another meeting
We'll need a
specifically
meeting
because,
Specifically on this wall.
yeah, for the wall. And it's like, I would say it's like, we'll just play it by ear by the time you think.
Okay.
Either I think we need something from a paving perspective, or you need something when you think, okay, you don't need to be ready. We are getting ready by that time. Down. Let's just schedule something in there, and I'll do the same on my side with paving.
Okay. All right. So with that, I think we need to adjourn the meeting, 8:25.
Oh, wait to hear from you. You'll reach out on when to talk and all that stuff. Yeah, thank you.
We will call.
It'll be okay. Don't worry. It'll be fine.
Okay, all those in favor of adjourning the meeting? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody,
all.
for coming. We came, we saw, we conquered. Thank you.
Thank you.
Time for dinner.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.